Yay.
Are we here?
We are here. I think we are live streaming. Yay.
Yay.
I think we are.
We're live. We're live on YouTube yet again. Take 2 of Fandom Chat Midnight Sun Monday. We stole it. That's what we're using. And we're back. This is our second take at discussing the Twilight fandom and Midnight Sun, and we're gonna dive into the Midnight Sun cover eventually. But we're gonna start again by reintroducing ourselves if you missed our first discussion. I'm Lori Joffs, and I'm from the Lexicon. Laura?
Hi, I'm Laura Byrne Cristiano. I am also from Twilight Lexicon and the technical guru such as it is. So if I'm not talking, I'm trying to figure out how to stream all this.
She's listening to like a 10-second delay. Kara?
Well, I am Kara O'Grady. I am with the almighty Twilight Moms, and we have a little special extra news break after this.
Amy.
Hi, everybody. This is Amy Taylor. I was with His Golden Eyes and then Page to Premiere Network. I am Oh My Carlisle on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm known for being the Carlisle and Esme girl.
And Natasha.
Hi, I Natasha Polis, and I'm formerly from Page to Premiere, and now I run my own YouTube channel, which is Tashapolis. I talk about books.
And this week we have a new person joining us right down below me, or at least it's on my screen. She's right below me. Amanda?
I'm above you on mine. Hi, I'm Amanda Bell. I used to run the Twilight Examiner column at examiner.com. It's no longer active, but I still write. I'm now with TV Guide, and you might have seen me at Next Movie, MTV News, Yahoo Movies, lots of different places.
Like a real career.
Correct.
Like legit.
Last week we all got to share our oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening moment. Yeah. Do you want to share one of those with us?
Well, so my first really moment was probably about 6 months after I started. I got to go to Nashville and follow around some of the people who had written songs for the Twilight soundtrack, Bobby Long and Sam Bradley, and I just got a lot of time with them. That was one-on-one. They were there for, I can't even remember the event now. But yeah, I got to go in Nashville and hang out with them for a few days. And I just remember thinking, wow, this is really special. So that was my first moment. And then the moment that really, really blew me away was the first time I went to a premiere, the New Moon premiere that fall. And that's the first time I met a lot of you. It was awesome.
So we also want to say hello to everybody that's joining us on YouTube. And we promise we're going to talk to the people on YouTube a little bit better this time. So if you've got questions as we're talking, say, hey, I've got a question, and we'll try to catch you, okay?
Yep, we're working on it, and I've got them, so.
We're going to start this week off by talking about the first time that we met Stephenie Meyer, because we've all met her. And I think we've all met her a couple of times. And so we'll start, Laura and I will start with the first time that we met Stephenie, because the first time we met Stephenie, we met her together. We were together. We went to Book Expo in Washington, D.C. when New Moon was being released. Yes,
right. About 7-ish months or so before the release, something like that. Yeah, so this would have been spring of 2006, where people went, Twilight what? Stephenie Meyer who? Yeah, that was fun. So at the time I lived in North New Jersey, and Lori you were living in Nashville at that time. So you came to me in New Jersey, and then we drove down to Washington, D.C. for the day, which is where Book Expo America was being held that year. And we met Stephenie at her hotel room, and then we went to lunch with her, and then we drove around a bit, brought her back again. And so one of the fun factors of that is that we lost track of time twice. You can tell them if you want about what happened there. But we lost.
get 1 or 2 parking tickets? How many parking tickets did you get with Stephenie? I know
Parking
we got
tickets.
1.
No, we got
2.
2 parking tickets. I'm pretty sure the same DC parking agent wrote the ticket for the car in 2 different locations. But we got 2 parking tickets in like the span of 3 hours in Washington, DC, which, as I understand it, is just an average Thursday in DC, but we did manage to do that. And then for a while, like back in those early days, there were like online chat rooms and all kinds of things. So every now and then Stephenie would pop into a chat, but sometimes you would deal with like impersonators pretending that they were Stephenie in a chat. So what I would always do if I was in a chat room where there was somebody purporting to be the real Stephenie Meyer, I would just DM the person being Stephenie and say, if this is the real Stephenie Meyer, tell me where we ate lunch in Washington, DC. And when she would provide me with the answer, or I would say, what happened that was a little unusual in Washington, DC? And she would either say, you mean 2 parking tickets? Or the name of where we ate lunch, which I'm not going to reveal that because that's like the one left, like security question I got left here. That was our way of proving that we were talking to actually Stephenie Meyer and not an imposter.
I can't
We
wait for
chatted with her in her hotel room. And we chatted with her in her hotel room, and she signed our copies of Twilight. And I know I got an audio version of Twilight. Did she give you an audio version of Twilight?
No, at that point, I actually got an ARC because what had happened is that for Twilight and New Moon, there were ARCs, or advanced readers copies, if people don't know that terminology. And what had happened, since we had been running the website at that point for now like 4 or 5 months, and some people had gotten ARCs, I had gotten continuously spoiled from moderating our forums for New Moon, and I kept saying, I feel like I know what happens in this book without actually having read this book. So at that meeting, Stephenie actually handed me an ARC of New Moon so I could read the story in sequence that I had pretty much gotten entirely spoiled by. So that's the first time I actually got a copy of the book, was then.
So that was when we first met Stephenie. Cara, when did you first meet Stephenie?
My first actual brush with greatness was during the drop for the actual first meeting was the drop for the Breaking Dawn book party in New York City. So that night at the Nokia, which was about 90 seconds of me and Melissa and 37 other Twilight moms talking to poor Stephenie at the end of the night. It had been a long day for all of us. And, you know, it was quick and goodbye. The next time I met her and got to hang out a little bit was during New Moon Red Carpet, and then post New Moon Red Carpet. And during that, what was hysterical was I asked my question on the red carpet. Amanda and I were both reporting for the first time. I was nervous. It was bizarre. I'm not used to being on this end of the camera. I'm used to doing lighting behind the scenes. And Stephenie was completely sweet. And then afterwards, I forget if it was during the movie or at one point when we were in the movie theater, I physically almost ran into her. And so she was like, oh, it's so good to meet you, blah, blah, blah. Where's Lisa? Where's Georgia? And she had all these questions about the admins from our website, where they were, what they were doing. Could she get some joy? All sorts of silly things. And I was like, oh my God, you're so real. You're so normal. And after that, we became not so fast friends, but we've been vaguely together in a vague way ever since.
Mhm.
Amy, how about you?
I think I talked a little bit about last week, but my first meeting with Stephenie was at the Breaking Dawn Part 1 fan camp. So it was, you know, all the rumors were going out, Stephenie's coming, maybe she's coming.
Mm-hmm.
And then they kind of got everybody out of their tents and along a barrier. Sounds familiar. And Stephenie came along, and it was windy and rainy and cold. And she came down the line. I remember like talking to her about the weather, because, you know, that's what you do when it's Twilight. You talk about the weather. And it was like this moment. I have a picture with her where my eyes look glassy because it was so cold. I'm wearing a knit cap. But the follow-up story to that was the next time I saw her was Breaking Dawn Part 2 Comic-Con. And when a big chunk of the cast came out to where everybody was camping out for Comic-Con for the big Hall H panel. And Stephenie was coming down the line, and she got to me and she looked at me and was like, "We met before." And I was like flustered, like, what? And I mean, part of me still thinks to this day she thinks I was somebody else completely. But I was like, yeah, well, yeah, I was at the Breaking Dawn Part 1 fan camp. Like, some words came out of my mouth, and she looks at me and she's like, "I remember you." And I'm like, blew me away. So that night, a little more about the story. So that night we were at the Summit Entertainment Party for Comic-Con, at Comic-Con, and like nobody spotted Stephenie. Maybe you guys did, but nobody seemed to be spotting Stephenie. We're kind of like looking around for her. Didn't see her, saw lots of cast. And at one moment, like late in the party, all of a sudden I see like Stephenie Meyer out of the corner of my eye walking across, and she makes eye contact with me and she gives me this like cutest little wave at me, like, "Hey, like I know you." And it was just like one of those like endearing, wonderful Stephenie Meyer moments. And I've gone to have some great moments with her since. Natasha and I have had the chance to interview her for the host. So, but like those little fangirl early moments, memories just stuck in your brain forever.
Okay, so Natasha, your turn.
Well, we were meant to meet at the Breaking Dawn Part 2 fan camp. She also came to that one and did a big signing, but my group wasn't called, so I never got to meet her that day. Oh. Yeah, my heart like broke.
Oh no.
But I mean, I've got to meet Stephenie several times after that. And then, but the first time I met her was for the host movie like book signing at the Grove, I think. And then Amy and I did press for Page to Premiere. But my favorite time was, I guess the last time I saw her was for the 10th anniversary of Twilight. And my best friend Christine and I moderated her Q&A for a theater full of people. And it was just like, that was the best time because we spent so much time with her, just kind of behind the scenes and interviewing her. And then she sent me a caramel apple like gift box. And I'm like, it's like an apple afterwards. So yeah, I love Stephenie.
Right, Amanda.
Well, I mean, I'm jealous of all of these encounters because I have only met Stephenie Meyer one time. And I wouldn't consider it like spending time with her. It was at the Eclipse premiere. I got to interview her very briefly. I was standing next to you, Laura, I believe. And yeah, I got like 2 questions in, and of course she was lovely and just wonderful. But that's it. That's my one and only encounter with Stephenie, and it definitely seared itself in my brain, but that's all I got.
Maybe we can get a fan site phone call or something like that where we can interview her.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what I asked her. I was like, come on, the fan sites want to interview Stephenie again.
Yes.
So I'm going to take a pause before we move on and start talking about the book covers, and I'm going to let Kara give us some important information.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else that's on the YouTube feed that I'm trying to look down at on my iPad at the same time, and I'm failing. All of you that were part of Twilight Moms back in the day, Twilight Moms, originally the site was developed by a lovely woman named Lisa Hansen that we refer to as the Lisa for years. She started back in 2007. We grew to over 70,000 followers at one point during Breaking Dawn, but then after the movies, things started to fade out. Children started to grow and actually want to be fed. All sorts of attention got pulled away. But thanks to the strangeness timing of the pandemic and Stephenie really releasing this book for a reason, which I think was to get us all out of a funk at just the right time, we all also happen to have a little bit of time off. So Twilight Moms, hold on. Sparkly, super sparkly. Twilight Moms, the website has returned. We are now twilightmoms.net. That's .net. The old Twilight Mom site is gone. The new Twilight Mom site is up. It's up. It's ready for you to all come join. Right now, this week, we only have the news blog up, and we have some great pictures and memories. The forums, because I've already been DM'd by a bunch of people, the forums will be back. It's going to take another week or so for us to get the forums back online. We did a poll to see if people were really interested in still doing a forum site since Facebook has kind of taken over all of our lives. We got great feedback that said, yes, we would love a place that's off of Facebook to just talk about the site, talk about Stephenie, the movies, the books, the people, the fandom, and the sisterhood that was created with Twilight Moms. So please, it's no longer over 25. If you are over 18, come join us at twilightmoms.net. And no, you do not have to be married and you do not have to be a mom in order to join the site. I am only one of those two. So there you go. Thanks, Lori.
And I am sure that there are a bunch of fans that are just ecstatic that you guys are back and running and that they can reminisce with their favorite fan site again.
Oh yeah,
Okay,
it's been great already so far. Just getting the admins back together has been historic. Kids are in college. I mean, what really has it been 12 years? I mean, come on, everybody.
Yes.
Did we all start this? Like, that's an entire person ago. Let's be real. And with that thought, I hand it back to the almighty lexicon to run this show.
We, last week in talking about Midnight Sun, we did not, did I lose my feed? Hello,
Nope,
am I
you're
back?
there.
I'm sorry, I should say I'm in the middle of the, hello, am I there? I'm in the middle of the mountains, and so my feed comes and goes. I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of the mountains. So we are going to talk about all the book covers, yes, including Midnight Sun. We did not talk about that last week because we're gonna go book by book. So let's start with Twilight. What does the cover of Twilight mean and represent? Because I don't think we can understand Midnight Sun unless we talk about Twilight. So here we go. Oh, we have two different versions, and Amy's going to take it away.
Twilight. And we have models too.
Okay,
Here we go.
Oh, very nice.
There we go.
Gosh, Lord.
So Twilight, the apple, forbidden fruit. So Stephenie has talked a bit about that cover. She was involved with it. Again, forbidden fruit coming from Genesis, Adam and Eve, the idea of the apple from the tree. And I mean, the part of it that really sticks with me is the idea of the choice of the apple. Do you take the apple and open up your brain to all this knowledge of this forbidden world of vampires? Or do you not take it and just live your happy life and no fairy tales and no wolves and no vampires? So that is the story. And said Stephenie was involved with this one. Maybe not so much in some others, but questions?
I remember meeting the
which
hand
brings
model.
us to, what was the name of the hand model? Because
That's so interesting.
Kimbra.
Kimber Hickey.
Kimber Hickey.
Kimbra.
That's so interesting because I always thought the forbidden fruit element was of Edward with Bella, like that she was the forbidden fruit. That's why I always found it confusing that there was
I like that.
hands. You know, I always thought it should be a pair of male vampire hands in a way because that's what the apple symbolized to me a little bit.
Interesting. I'm looking forward to your take on Midnight Sun.
Because they are female hands, and it was
Yeah.
Eve who gave the fruit to Adam.
There you
and
go.
he made the choice to eat it. And so I always took it that, does Edward have the choice to take a bite of Bella?
Right, exactly.
That's certainly her opinion.
Okay. So, Kara, you get New Moon.
The Wonderful World of New Moon, or as some of you will call it, the first book cover that Stephenie didn't have a lot of choice in, unfortunately. Oh, yours is different. Movie book. Nice. I went old school because this one's signed. Anyway, as you read on Stephenie Meyer's website, and I've asked her about this as well, she was not involved in the ruffled tulip decision. It could mean multiple things. First, going back to Kimber Hickey, who is the original hand model for Twilight, there was another photo shoot for New Moon with a different cover that shows the apple falling and basically another hand failing to catch it. I dug around, it's in a box somewhere. I have copies of that picture, but that did not get to be it for reasons Little and Brown has never shared with us. I've never asked. So we have the ruffled tulip. The ruffled tulip, if you plant in September, will grow. It will come out in April, depending on where you live. I like to believe this particular ruffled tulip, with the little bit of blood, petal showing, talks about all of the tears that Bella cried, which is why the teardrop, or the fact that Edward is slowly dying really throughout this entire book, or wishing he could, and yet Bella still brings him back to life. And I think it's my personal theory of this has always been, because of it's the white and the red, it's Edward and Bella, and how they're both tortured during most of this book. That's my book report for the day. Thank you, Mrs. Castron.
When
Do you think maybe the blood drop
showed
is
me the cover,
from how
when
she
she showed me the
pricked her
cover
finger?
of the book, she said they're like stuck on this red and white theme. She said, I don't know what I'm gonna do for the next book. A beach ball? I mean, what's red and white?
Right? It's true. Fun fact before we get to the next book, the first two books in the series, so Twilight and New Moon, both were published really before the whole series exploded, in that, between like how arcs come out and then, you put your next book out, it gets edited. It's just the publishing cycle, the nature of what it is. And because of that, the first two books, there were lots and lots of international covers, as publishers around the world tried to figure out how to pitch this. But starting with Eclipse is really when it was just like, everyone was like, oh no, the black and white branding is a thing. And then they all started to like redo all their covers in the very iconic images that we now have. So fun fact, if you have one of those covers that is not the cover like what we've been holding up, and you have that signed, you have a very valuable commodity, folks. So if you have one of those, because very few of those exist, particularly the creepy UK covers that looked like, what's her name from the Addams Family was on it. Why can't I think of her name? She was
Morticia?
No, the girl who then went on to be in The Host, and she was in The Host. It looked like Christina Ricci. It looked like a creepy version of Christina Ricci on the covers. It looked like a very creepy version of Christina Ricci. If you actually have those and they're signed, you have first edition signs of something that no one's ever making again. So you have a very valuable commodity.
Just a sidebar to that, there's a really good Instagram that's Twilight_saga_book_collector. So she has all different covers that she does some really like pretty photo shoots with, and it's really neat. She has just international covers from all over the place.
Oh, cool. Send us that link and we'll put that up in a post after, so we make sure that people can see that.
Doesn't Works have like a library, or they have all the editions as well, right?
They have quite a few different ones that people have sent to them.
They were putting it together, like the white cover books. Like I know, Amy, you were handing up one of the white photo reverse covers before. Yes, I knew they were acquiring them. I don't know if they have everything yet, but they were absolutely acquiring them.
I think Amanda wanted to say something about the New Moon cover.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, when she was theorizing about the blood drop, it reminded me of the birthday scene when she pricks her finger and all hell breaks loose. Sorry, that's a four-letter word, but yeah, that's what kind of catapults the whole story into that dark territory. It was the drop of blood, so maybe there was a little something there. I don't know. I guess it's me for Eclipse, right?
On Eclipse. Yes.
So Eclipse, from what I understand and from what I've read, it had been a while, so I looked it up. But yeah, so the ribbon that's breaking is supposed to symbolize Bella being kind of torn away from her human life by this possibility of a life being a vampire or being with vampires, and she's kind of frayed and she's almost torn. That's the other. But when I saw it, I always thought that it was more symbolic of the dual supernatural worlds that she's dealing with, like the werewolf side and the vampire side, and that their stress on her was about to break her. So that's what I kind of interpreted as. Like Bella was in the ribbon in both situations, but yeah, I always saw it as like, Jacob's pulling one side, Edward's pulling the other, and it's tearing her apart. That was my interpretation. But yeah, I mean, it does make sense that it would be more, her family's coming back, she's getting closer to her family again, and then, she's eyeing this potential future. And then I guess the other thing, maybe it's like the tattered ribbon could also symbolize how Victoria's really, really close to getting her this time. Yeah.
Well, and the like the frayed pieces aren't completely separate. Like at no point is there a true division.
Yeah.
That there's always something still pulling you towards that other side.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I guess if you think about it, you know, with especially the beautiful job Bill Condon did with showing the transformation into vampire, I thought that he did a good job of kind of reflecting that little bit of the book, because when her synapses and everything connected, it kind of looked like what we see in this cover.
Mhm.
For the ribbon
Alright.
too, I always thought about like
So we
the
move
dates.
on to Breaking
And
Dawn. We move on to Breaking Dawn.
Oh, wait. Or Tosh, if you want Tosh to go next with Bree Tanner, or
Bree
Or
Tanner.
black.
Okay, sure. Sure.
Tosh,
Bree
go ahead with
Tanner,
Bree
Bree
Tanner.
Tanner.
Yes.
Okay, so this is
Topic can go.
the short second life of Bree Tanner. This is the only book I think in Stephenie in the trilogy that is very explanatory. Because it's a very long title. So anyways, it's what is this thing called again? The
Hourglass.
Hourglass.
hourglass, and it really just symbolizes that Bree is running out of time for her second life. There you go.
Ta-da!
I did it.
You did it.
A class.
Nothing else? Well, you know, there's a lot of people that don't know that book even exists.
It
Because I had posted
That's
an
true.
Instagram
That's
video
true.
of the book, and I had people chime in that they're like, what the heck is that book?
Yeah, I had the same thing
Yeah,
when I
there it
posted a picture of all the books when Midnight Sun was announced. People were like, it was like, what is that?
I have like
Surprise.
a bookmark in it from June 5th, 2010 when it first came out.
There you go.
Right before the movie.
Okay, Laura, Breaking
Okay,
Dawn.
so I guess I'm up. Breaking
Breaking
Dawn.
Dawn.
So I don't have my book up. So if anybody has the book near them to hold up a visual display, feel somebody who's there and has one within swiping distance. Mine is about 20 feet that way. There we go. We now have visual displays. So I like talking about this book. Fun fact, I actually got to name this book. There were about 20 of us in a chat room with Stephenie in the old days, like when she talked about her letter about life being simpler, and she had finished Eclipse, and she was into, well, having written Breaking Dawn, but didn't have a title. And she was just like, I just need a name that's different. I need something unique. And people are going, sunrise, blazing sun, sun, glow light, and what, you know, so like everyone's like throwing these names in the chat room, and I was just like, dawn. No, not really dawn. It's not quite dawn. I'm like, well, dawn, daybreak. And I was like, oh, maybe like Breaking Dawn. And I remember typing in the chat, how about Breaking Dawn? And like, you know how chat rooms go, things like go like really, really fast. So like 20 more lines go by, and then Stephenie goes, that's it. And like the whole chat room just froze and went, and then somebody typed, what's it? You know, which one? Because there's like at that point, there's like 40 names in the chat. And she goes, Breaking Dawn. I love Breaking Dawn. And I was literally up on my keyboard like this. Like I was just like frozen like this. I was just like, oh my God. Okay, well, that's okay. I'm sitting there going, that's never gonna stick. She's gonna rename that tomorrow. And so surprised she stuck with it. So that was like my fun little thing about having named that book, which is pretty cool. But what the book symbolizes, it is a chessboard. So part of the reason it's a chessboard is that there is a massively advanced game of chess going on there on how to outwit the Volturi and keep everybody safe. So that, and a very high stakes game of chess, that's part of it. The other part of it, if you notice, is the queen is at the very forefront of the book and the king is behind. And the queen is the most powerful player on the chessboard. And what it symbolizes is that Bella, now that she's a vampire, and with the ability she has, she is now not a fragile human who is, one step away from Jasper eating her. She's the most powerful player in the room. And she is at the forefront and taking control of this very elaborate game of chess. And you can see Edward, who is the king, behind her, because now Bella is taking the lead. So that's what the Breaking Dawn chess game and chess pieces symbolize. And that's also how there was a nice little shout out in the first Breaking Dawn movie with Edward and Bella playing chess on the island, which was just a nice little Easter egg, a nice little homage to the book cover.
Laura, do you know if she had something to do with this cover?
She did. This one, the only, to the best of my knowledge, the only one that she didn't have anything to do with was New Moon. Every single other cover, she had input into it. And that's true in a lot of the publishing business. I mean, the publishing business has changed a bit over the years, but it was not uncommon when Twilight is published for authors to basically be given a cover and be like, hi, this is your cover, love it. You know, and it's just the way it was.
Do you know, did Lil Brown buy the first trilogy and then they added the fourth? And
Yes.
then that's why she got to write it maybe into the contract saying that she had control over the cover?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, it was originally optioned. Yeah, it was originally optioned as a trilogy. And it was not per se 100% sure it would go to a fourth book. And she even had a way to wrap it up in 3 if she had not been given the fourth book.
Cool. We actually have a question
Laura,
in the Facebook chat.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I just want to ask, since Laura brought up the story.
Well, I think Laura had said that it was a team.
I missed that, Tasha.
Laura,
Well, let me start. Laura, you're breaking up, so why don't we go with the question Tasha has first, and then we'll try it again.
The question is from KMA88. It says, question, what would you all name a sequel book? Like, i.e. Jacob Renesmee's story, probably, since Laura got to name Breaking Dawn.
Oh, God.
Puppies.
Huh. You know what? I feel like you would have to go for a different motif because you'd now be focusing more on a werewolf and vampire hybrid story. Like, or like it's, yeah, I think you'd have to go for, I think you'd really have to transition to a different motif. I think it would be really super interesting to figure that one out.
Do you think like the branding would be totally different from like the red and black?
I would love, so my marketing brain goes, yes, it would have to be 2 colors. It wouldn't be red and black, but it would be a different 2 colors to symbolize that other story. But I mean, Lord knows I'm not the head of marketing. So that would be my 2 cents, but who knows?
I mean, the obvious, like, obviously you could go for something like imprint, but also I was thinking, like, what about something like shimmer for the fact that Renesmee, her skin does what it does. I don't know. It's fun.
I mean, it would be interesting. It would be an interesting concept on how many stories that would go. Yeah, I mean, lots of questions. And in Stephenie's mind, if she did it like, you know, what her mind was a decade ago when she might write such a story, you know, versus because in her head back years ago, she had said, oh, I could do book 7 or 8, or I could do book 9. And where her head was a decade ago, even more than a decade ago at this point, when we talk about some of that stuff, who's to say where that's gone in the last, you know, 10, 15 years.
Sparkle and Fido together again.
Lori's got an opinion.
Well, I want to clarify something. Did you say that it was a king in the background? Because I think it's a pawn.
It's a
I think
pawn.
Oh, is it a
and
pawn?
queen.
Sorry, so it should be a pawn. Sorry, pawn.
Is it, because it can also be that Bella goes from the least powerful character in the game
to the most
powerful character in the game. Yeah.
I just want to have an excuse
So
to
I've
show
got the.
Oh, there we go.
my book in. We got the queen.
That's awesome.
Really proud
Does
of that.
anyone have a copy of the Twilight? Does anyone have a copy of the guide?
What?
The guide.
I'm sorry,
Tara's
Lexicon.
got
Would
it.
you like to discuss the guide? Tell me, ladies, what can you tell us about the guide?
So, the guide. What's interesting about the cover? What's interesting about the cover for the Twilight guide is that Stephenie tried to make that cover fit for Eclipse and Breaking Dawn. I remember her talking about always having this idea of these puzzle pieces because Bella doesn't know where she fits. And so Laura and I had a little bit of input on the Twilight guide, but we didn't see the cover until like it was released. And when it was released and it was a puzzle piece, I was like, of course it's the last piece of the puzzle. You get all the little stories that fill in the gaps that you don't know. So Stephenie had been trying to get a puzzle piece cover for a couple of times, and I think Eclipse and Breaking Dawn's covers work much better. I think the puzzle piece works perfectly for the Twilight guide, but I know she thought of a puzzle piece cover for a long time. Yeah.
Like
okay, so now we're on to Midnight Sun. Or do we have any other questions? Are there questions from the chat?
A lot about Jacob and Renesmee story, which I think we should save for a different live show.
That could be a whole show.
Yes.
So if you guys have questions, write them in the comments.
We will talk about.
Sorry.
So now let's talk about the Midnight Sun cover. All right, folks. What was your first reaction? And be honest. What was your first reaction to seeing the cover? Separate from, oh my gosh, I'm getting Midnight Sun, to actually seeing the cover. Okay? So let's start with Natasha. What was your first reaction?
I was kind of grossed out. Also, I don't think that like the size of the font is so overwhelmingly large, and it doesn't fit the rest. Like, is this the final cover? So that really bothers me. Besides like the weird pomegranate, which I understand now, it's a little gross, but the size of the font is really bothering me.
Okay, Kara, what did you think? What was your reaction? Kara.
First reaction was the same as Tasha. Said, wow, that's big. And I'm like, oh, I guess they did that for marketing, or because I'm looking on my phone. I was like, oh, well, it's not sized right. It's on my phone. And I might have been pulling into a parking space. So then I looked again. When I realized it was a pomegranate, I did actually in first glance, I thought it was like an open heart. And I'm going, what? And then I looked at it a little closer. Once I realized it was pomegranate, I had like 3 different theories going in my head, and I will bore you with all of those once we get into the deeper meaning of the pomegranate and which Greek mythology, or there's so many choices on why it's pomegranate.
Amy, what do you think?
Similar response. The fonts.
Something wrong with us.
I went heart, and then I thought the wrong fruit. I was like, passion fruit. I'm like, oh, wait, that's not the right fruit. It's pomegranate.
But in Greek, pomegranate means passion fruit. So you're on the right track.
Okay, so I was there because I was like, oh, like passion, like, you know, again. And then like kind of stared at it for a while and then started thinking through all the different things that it could mean. I guess we're going to get to that point too. But yeah, definitely the font, and thought it was a heart, then incorrectly a passion fruit, and then realized it was a pomegranate cut in half.
Amanda?
Yeah.
Any other difference?
I wish I had a more argued out response than this, but my initial reaction was, wow, that's like a messy fruit. And that's almost perfect because Twilight, the apple is so crisp and clean. And if like going against what I said earlier about the apple representing Bella, if it was representing Edward, this is like, you see the clean, like beautiful exterior of him, but now you're getting to see like the dirty innards. And I don't know, those seeds, like the visual of those like really struck me as like representing like the way, the anatomy of the vampire, you know, makeup. So that was my reaction, was like, yeah, I like it. It's kind of messy, and that works for what this story is.
Laura?
I like very similar to everyone. I was like, dear God, is that oozing fruit? Like, I was just like, is it rotting fruit? And then I looked at it again. I'm like, no, that is just a very messy, very photoshopped pomegranate. And then gross. That was my, I didn't get caught up in the typography, but I was very much like, my God, that pomegranate is leaking everywhere, is immediately where my head went, and similarly have thoughts about what that might mean.
That was my first, after seeing the pomegranate and going, oh, my first thought was, ew, why is that so oozy? And then beep, oh, wait, this was done very intentionally. Crap, I am missing something. I got to go look stuff up. As opposed to, this is the only fruit that was around.
I'm trying to find where, because I'm sure that I think Laura and we were texting each other. Honestly, when it leaked, when it said it's Midnight Sun, and I saw a link and I clicked a link and I was like, oh, that's not it. This is somebody's made. Somebody's
fan art.
made something, because nobody would put this on a book cover. And then I was like, wait a minute.
No, that's it.
Wait. And I watched the Good Morning America thing and I'm like,
Oh.
okay. What we're going with. I mean, it really, I thought it was a joke. Somebody has manipulated a piece of art. And then I started looking at it. I'm like, all right, it's a pomegranate. It's really gross. Let's think, why did she do this? Because she had to pick it. She had to do this.
Yeah.
So then now we get into the nitty gritty of what does it mean. So Amanda, you started talking about it. So go ahead. What's your first thoughts on the pomegranate versus an apple?
I genuinely, the only thought I have about that, I know that I would rather Kara talk about the significance of it historically and things like that, because I'm not up on that. But my thought on it is like I said, the appearance of it, first of all, it's cut in half. And then the fact that it has those little cellular looking, the seeds are really kind of remind me of how we are thinking about how vampire blood and how their insides look and move, and maybe venomous a little bit. But I'm looking at the cover again, and I'm really seeing almost like they're messing with us, like it's a Rorschach test in and of itself. That's what it looks like.
Right. It's a good. I like the Rorschach.
I like the Rorschach test of what do you see?
Yeah.
Right? Almost like it's messing with us. Yeah.
Laura, what do you get from a pomegranate? Why a pomegranate?
Great. And there we go. Tasha's holding it up. So to me, when I looked at it, the first thing I felt like when it was halved like that and just oozing, it reminded me of just the human brain, kind of it almost looked like a if you went in for a CAT scan or
an
something,
MRI,
like an MRI kind of thing. And where my brain went afterwards is that Bella is in Edward's head and he is losing his mind. And it's dripping away because he can't hear her. She smells the best ever. He's just everything that was so solid and in there is just now all going and so that's where that's what I thought about it.
I still don't understand why the
Natasha,
lettering is
you're
so
next.
big. Why is this lettering so big? Can someone talk about Breaking Dawn?
I love you.
Where's Breaking Dawn? It's the same font.
Yeah.
It's the same. Why?
I think this is sort of I don't know. There's
really tiny.
I think somehow publishers were afraid that fandom would be sleeping under a rock, and they felt on the end cap needed to be 4 times as large for people to find out, because apparently they thought people wouldn't. I mean, I don't know. I've got the web stats to prove it. They know. They're buying it. Relax. On your font.
I mean,
Lettering. It's the picture of the fruit is so gigantic too. It's the biggest thing that's ever been on a book cover. It's whoa!
It is not subtle. Yeah,
no,
it is not
It's
subtle.
not.
I personally like the original cover, but this makes sense. I totally understand. Obviously, looking at it, this is the version of the apple, and makes sense. We already got the green apple, so why not?
Yeah, and that's the fan art, or that was the.
I was going to say that's what Wikipedia still has.
Right.
Is the fan art one that we all loved.
I mean, I think the fact that we're talking about so many different possibilities of what it means, I think that speaks to, why it works in a way, other than the font. I'm not going to defend that, but I think the fact that you can read in like,
Well, this goes back to the entire concept of what is the pomegranate, and you have, depending on which theory you read, because I was a philosophy major, so sorry, I'm going to bore you all for a second. In Greek mythology, as you know, Persephone goes down and is trapped in the underworld forever because she eats 6 pomegranate seeds. Only 6. That will trap you forever in the underworld. So the theory is, in my brain, this is the way Edward sees himself, that he's trapping Bella into hell if he goes through with this, that she's either A, going to be dead really quick, or B, you know, he's leading her to a life that she can never escape. And this is not what he wants to do, but that's where we're headed. That's the Persephone Greek version. There's also a very happy version. There's a version that the pomegranate is actually the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden, and it's not actually an apple. Pomegranate, yeah. What I love is Lori was frozen for a second there going, look. It's like, no, that's not true. And also, if you go back, and I'm not going to say it right, there's 613 seeds in a pomegranate, theoretically, which would symbolize the original 613, and I'm going to say the Jewish word wrong, forgive me all, commandments that were sent down in the Old Testament. Anyone else that is better at Bible study than me can go into greater detail about that. But the pomegranate means many things. It either is the forbidden fruit, the passion fruit, it can mean happiness and fertility, or it can mean that you're doomed in hell forever.
And why is it rotting?
Amy.
See, that's a good question too.
Why is it rotting? I don't know.
think it's, I think it's rotting. Do you think it's rotting, or do you think that's just photoshopped?
I think that's just photoshopped. I think it's not rotting. It's just incredibly ripe.
Yeah, I don't like pomegranates, and I definitely I've only ever had it as juice. I don't really eat it, so I'm not sure.
It makes an awesome martini.
Yeah, it looks awesome. It looks very oozy. So yeah,
it does. It looked like open heart surgery to me. That was my first glance. So,
Amy, your thoughts on the pomegranate?
So I went back and I looked at when I woke up that morning, one of the first things I saw was a text from Lori about the cover. So what was actually the immediate, within a half hour of seeing it, what I wrote was, it's an awful image. But I get it. A pomegranate versus an apple. It's a more expensive, exotic, sophisticated, and layered fruit versus an apple. You are seeing the inside of it to see how complex it is below the surface. So, I mean, as I've continued to look at it, over the last couple of weeks, I mean, definitely kind of noticed the dripping. I actually noticed the sort of blood drop sort of thing coming from it in the last couple of days. But now, talking about the new moon has a similar sort of drip to it. I mean, yeah, the whole idea of thanks, Tara. The whole idea of kind of the apple versus the pomegranate. And yeah, also the idea that it was potentially, there are translations to say the pomegranate instead of the apple in the Garden of Eden. So I thought that was kind of interesting too, kind of it could be the same thing, but depending on interpretation. So you're seeing the same story, but you're getting it from sort of the simple, plain human Bella, and now you're getting it from the much more complex Edward. Yep. So
I'm interested in Kara's thoughts about the relationship with Persephone, because I'm wondering, maybe if you're talking about someone dragging him to hell, it's maybe Edward is the one going through hell, and not
That's
Bella
true.
getting
that. He's going through hell with this person showing up and destroying his life, basically.
Yeah, right.
Well, he even says, well, I'm already going to hell. I might as well go all the way now.
What if I'm the bad guy?
Yeah.
And I'm the bad guy.
I like that it. Yeah.
By the way, so this is just a regular pomegranate from Fresh Direct, if you're interested. It's not as oozy, but it is gushy. It's not, you're right. Okay, now that I've analyzed it more, the pomegranate on the cover does look like it's a little poisoned and not so healthy.
Well, I also I thought about being in the chambers of the heart, but then as I looked at it too, also it's looks almost like lungs, like your chest cavity. So it's what part, I've seen people put brain. So a lot of people are seeing some sort of internal anatomy in it too.
Yeah, I mean, I think Laura hit the nail on the head with the
first thought was that it was a heart. Yeah, I totally thought it was a heart the first time I saw it, and I'm like, it's not a heart because it's got stuff in it. What is it? Is that a pomegranate? I mean, it was like a double take.
Yeah. And honestly, I think I thought brain only because right before I did that, I was on Twitter and I saw some medical something or other, and there was a CAT scan in it. So I think that's probably also what sort of colored my point of view as to why I felt like brain. But I was like, oh, Edward, brain inside his head. What's he thinking? He knows what other people are thinking, and now he can't tell what she's thinking, and he's losing his mind. So that's
Well, like the top kind of looks like a nasal cavity, and then the two like open parts kind of look like the occipital lobes, I guess you would call them. Yeah.
So how well do we think this cover represents Edward and fits in with the rest of the Twilight covers, the Twilight Saga covers? How well do we think it fits in? We'll start with Amy.
That darn font.
It's too big.
somewhere there's a marketing executive, little brown, going, "Stop the presses. Take it down to size 15."
Kerning matters, people. Kerning matters.
It said, like, my first reaction is like, I get it. It's kind of, a dichotomy to Twilight's cover, and that you have this different fruit. I like the fact that like the color is not the exact red. That's like the Twilight red. That's a little bit different in color to go, this is not a Bella story. This is somebody else's perspective, but still, and I'm guessing maybe that has something to do with the large font too, but
No.
but yeah, I mean,
No.
Once we see it in person too, I mean, you don't see Midnight Sun as being like silvery shiny like the titles are on these books. Like, it might have a different look to it once we actually get it in our hands.
That's a very valid point too, because you're talking, I mean, I don't know that they've run off to the presses with the covers yet, or early, early visual display versus what the end may be. It's a good point.
If you think about like Life and Death, the font is different on that. And then you also have a different color. So kind of representing, that's, I'm wondering, we're talking about Jacob and Renesmee, that maybe it would be something where, you would have like a different font, a different color, but still you kind of can connect all of them. There's something in some way to connect all the books.
Amanda?
Yeah, so I guess I'm going to be honest and just say my first impression still kind of sticks with me. Even looking at it again right now, it's like the thing that I'm struck by is just how gory and how it's like, this fruit is pretty on the outside, but we're going to get to see the inside. We're going to get to see the messy inside. And I know that there's some discussion about whether it's rotted or not. I don't know that it makes a difference. I think, what we're seeing is just like this, we have this picture of Edward, and so did Bella, but now we're going to see the entire thing from his darker and scarier perspective. And I just think it's supposed to be a little off-putting. It's supposed to be a little scary because that's the reality of the story.
I like the word that you use, that it's gory, because I think Edward's story, Edward's point of view is much more horror film like than what we're used to in the Twilight Saga.
Well, I also go back to early days of the fandom though. Like, I remember lots of people saying, and I sort of remember Stephenie reiterating this very frequently at book signings, and people saying, "Oh, Edward is perfect. Edward is the perfect person." And I remember lots of times Stephenie saying, "No, he's not perfect. Edward is very aware of the fact that he is not perfect." And the other covers are very polished, if you will, in a way. There's a certain level of artistic perfection about the other covers. So it is kind of interesting to see this as being more imperfect. So maybe that's kind of reiterating that, no, Edward has flaws. There are some very real flaws, and we're going to get to see some of those inside flaws more. So since the narrative is coming from him directly.
That's true. So underneath the perfect marble skin, you're seeing what he sees himself as, because he still sees himself as a horrible person throughout 3 out of 4 of these books in many ways, and that he's tortured, and we're seeing the deep insides of his brain. That might not be so pretty.
And I also wonder if it's a hint that maybe, because I know that there was some discussion last week in you guys' group about what was in the original draft that was posted online and leaked or not. I wonder if this is a hint that we're going to get to see some new things from him. That's what it kind of signals to me. is like, I know what, I mean, I'm one of those people that read the transcript that she posted, or the draft that she posted online. But I think this tells me that we're in for some darkness that we're not expecting.
Could it also be, and this just popped into my head compared to what was leaked, that they're doing that now Stephenie's writing has also become so much more complex than it was a decade ago?
Yeah,
that it's
for
going
sure.
to be. And
I mean, I agree with you all.
So
I think
Natasha,
the cover,
your thoughts?
yeah, sorry.
I think the cover is, I think it fits really well. And I think it encompasses Edward, no matter my beef with the font size. But Jack Morsey actually he's in the group, and he said that, hi Jack. Where did he say that? He said, oh, to him, Bella is a ripe fruit. Which I really like. Yeah, and this is just the stark difference that Edward sees himself
For sure.
as.
Interesting.
Okay. Anything that we haven't hit on? Any other questions from the chat that we haven't hit on that we want to talk about the cover?
I'm scrolling through. I think we've gotten to those cover centric questions. Yes.
Okay, I want to make sure I address some of the questions that came our way over social media in these couple minutes. And if we want to continue talking about book signings, we can. But social media, one of the questions we had was about international pre-orders in the USA, Canada, and Australia only, and that they're running into some problems with international outside of the USA, Canada, and Australia. And Amy, did you have something on that? You were texting me about that?
I did. So Readers _ Warehouse is in South Africa. They have locations in Johannesburg and Cape Town, and they are doing pre-orders for it. But I was having some conversation with the person on Instagram, and they were saying that it's soft cover only, because apparently with like exchange rates, it would be like 20 times more expensive for the book. Apparently movies are really cheap in South Africa. Learn something new. But yeah, they are going to have it. The intention is to have it in there the week of August 4th. Because of COVID, they're kind of, trying to figure out with shipping and everything. But they said, their, I guess, distributor said, we'll have it at least at the latest the week of. So maybe not exactly on August 4th, but that week. So South Africa's awfully far away.
Yeah, and just the nature of how the publishing industry works. When they release works, frequently it's the US and Canadian rights that are held together, and then other English language transitions are within those other specific countries, and there's all sorts of laws within those countries. I don't know if it's still true, but I remember years ago in Germany, there was like a very set price of what all new novels came out as, and there's all sorts of things with translation rights. And so it's a very complex system, I guess is what I'm just trying to say. So just because you don't see it now, a lot of this has to do with publishing rights and negotiations and contracts and things like that, and a lot of local laws. So I don't think it's the intention for this not to be sold. Pretty much wherever the original translations of Twilight's were, all the books, it's just these things take time. I guess that's the shortest way that we can say this. It'll also be interesting too, because this I think will be the first book that will be widely released with a Kindle version. I mean, if you think about it, when the books were originally coming out, it was in the infancy of ebooks. The original was just released with the audiobook and hardcover, and eventually it went to softcover. But by the time Breaking Dawn was coming out, like, it's not like everybody was walking around with a Kindle. Like, that was not a thing yet, and not every book was released on Kindle then. So this is like a whole new dynamic. So who knows what'll happen with that.
But Life and Death was released.
Yes, that's true.
Because I was like buying it at like 9 p.m. Pacific time. Then
right.
It came out, dropped at midnight.
So if you did not realize that Barnes & Noble was pre-selling a copy of the book that said it would be signed by Stephenie Meyer. Now, I had a couple of people contact me and say that the pre-sale is gone. A couple other people said, no, I think it's still going. I'm not sure. But the question that I got was, do you think it'll be actually her signature or will it be a stamp? And I have a hard time believing that Barnes & Noble would sell us a book that had a stamp in it rather than her actual
Could
signature.
be auto pen.
But I can't
Auto pen.
verify that one way or the other.
Natasha might know.
Usually when the signed editions, the author will receive tip-ins, and it's the first page, the signed page, and the author will sit there. I've seen my friends and a lot of other authors publicize this on their social medias. They sit there and they hand sign them themselves. So yes, but there's only a small portion of them. So I think I've seen some people do about 2,000. So once those are gone, they're gone.
So two things I'll say about Barnes
Yeah.
Noble. One, it
No,
is
I do think it'll be limited.
sold out, and two, Barnes Noble a lot of times does signed editions for Black Friday. So maybe if they're even sold out this run, if there's still such a demand, especially since it's so early, they might do another run. One other thing I want to add from my person in South Africa, she noted that that Midnight Sun is selling gangbusters, especially compared to the Hunger Games book that's coming out tomorrow. It's blowing it out of the water in pre-sales.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised to hear that, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, the Hunger Games is
Another
great.
question.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just
You're
gonna say
good.
that
Sorry.
there was initial, a lot of backlash about what the story of the Hunger Games is, the new book, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, because it's centered around Coriolanus Snow. I know there's some parallel between the fact that we're seeing, the darker, origin story sort of thing of a character that we already know, but this is a very unpopular character. And there was some backlash as far as, people just don't want a redemption story for President Snow. So I'm not surprised to hear that.
It's true.
Yeah. I mean, and this is the book. Like, I think no matter how many times people would ask, every single time, I think any of us was ever asked, what do Twilight fans want over the years? I think the next two words out of all of our collective mouths was always Midnight Sun, or this is great, but what they really want is Midnight Sun. So, I mean, once this is out, I think the next thing that people will ask is going to be like, they want the Renesmee and Jacob story, but this is number one to tick off on what fandom wants.
Yeah,
The
for sure.
lexicon email is still open and running, and I probably get at least once, if not twice a week, when is Stephenie releasing Midnight Sun? And I usually say, I don't think she'll ever release it.
Right.
And then I went back and I re-emailed like the last 5 or 6 people, and I said, so looks like it might be coming out. I take that back. So another question that we got was, why does the USA version say that it has 672 pages and the UK version says 752 pages? I emailed the ladies at the Method Agency just to be sure. But again, this goes back to how international books are not the same as what we get. I have an entire collection of Harry Potter books that are a different size, a different page number, a different cover, everything about my Harry Potter books from the UK look completely different from my Harry Potter books in the United States.
Right.
And the ladies at the Method Agency said there is nothing in the 752 page version that you're not getting in the United States. They're the same book. It's probably just a different font. It's a bigger font, Natasha.
It's a bigger font, it's a different page size. Physically, it's a different page size to print. And maybe it'll be easier to read font.
I have editions of Twilight and Eclipse, and they're not as big.
Yes.
So they probably are thicker or more pages.
And then another question that we have in social media is, how do you think they're going to differentiate between Edward hearing thoughts and people talking to Edward when we're just listening to it on audio? And so I asked Amy to pull up a portion of the PDF of Midnight Sun. So if you really want to stay completely spoiler free, like la 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 la, don't listen. But
don't
I
look.
asked her to read like a little portion of what it sounds like, or what it might be like when Edward is hearing somebody's thoughts versus when someone's talking. So what'd you pull up for us?
Oh, I get to dramatize. So I pulled up 168, which is when Edward is in Port Angeles, looking into Jessica and Angela's thoughts as to what's going on while Bella's shopping with them. So, ready? I checked in routinely with Jessica again. She was thinking about her jewelry, asking Angela's opinion. Maybe I should take the necklace back. I've got one at home that would probably work, and I spent more than I'm supposed to. My mom is going to freak out. What was I thinking? I don't mind going back to the store. Do you think Bella will be looking for us, though? What was this? Bella wasn't with them. I stared through Jessica's eyes first, then switched to Angela's. They were on the sidewalk in front of a line of shops, just turning back the other way. Bella was nowhere in sight. Oh, who cares about Bella? Jess thought impatiently before answering Angela's question. She's fine. We'll get to the restaurant in plenty of time, even if we go back. Anyway, I think she wanted to be alone. I got a brief glimpse of the bookshop Jessica thought Bella had gone to. Let's hurry then, Angela said. I hope Bella doesn't think we ditched her. She was not so nice to me before in the car. She's a really sweet person, but she seems kind of blue all day. I wonder if it's because of Edward Cullen. I'll bet that's why she was asking about his family, ... I should have been paying better attention. What all had I missed here? Bella was off wandering by herself, and she'd been asking about me before. Angela was paying attention to Jessica now. Jessica was babbling about that idiot Mike, and I could get nothing more from her.
Okay. Hey. Is that it?
So yeah, I mean, what was interesting to me as I kind of read through that part is because part of it's just like train of thought. It's like Jessica's saying something, but then she's thinking something, and how you're going to differentiate that. But at the same time, in Breaking Dawn, you get some of that with Jacob, because the conversation is going on in his head, actually, like with the wolves as well.
You get all of that in The Host too. I mean, The Host is absolutely a whole entire book of that. So I think she's managed to, you know, I'm going to say between all of those experiences, she's gonna figure out a way to deliver this interestingly in Midnight Sun.
I just hope she gets somebody for the, you know, whoever they get for the voice sounds more age appropriate than the Bella in the Twilight novels.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Be like an actor, because like in all Cassandra Clare's audiobooks, they always get like a really cool actor usually.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too. I think also in response also to the fact that Kindle is more like has boomed since these books first came out. So has really the whole Audible and audiobook industry. I mean, before that, it was very much go out and please buy your 27 CDs for this book. You know, but now, you know, everybody's walking around with a smartphone or an iPad or whatever. I mean, I know my way now, frankly, of reading is almost always an Audible book. And you're right, Natasha, they have hired lots of actors. Cassandra Clare's books have excellent audio readers. I know my personal favorite, I love the books of Leigh Bardugo. I'm in love with Lauren Fortgang's voice. I would listen to Lauren Fortgang read anything all day long. So I feel like there are lots of really good articulate people out there in, you know, the Audible world who could be awesome at reading these books. It'll be really interesting to see who they pick and which people they pick too. I'm not really sure of the name of the guys who read Cassandra Clare's like 1800 series, the ones that was that Mortal Devices. Yes, I really liked who read the male voices in that series. So I mean, it'll be interesting to see who they pick.
Okay, any questions in the chat that we need to address? Anything from the chat?
I think we have caught up.
Yeah.
Okay. So we had totally planned, we've been at this for an hour now, and we had totally planned to talk about book signings and what that might look like during what it used to look like and what it might look like during this pandemic. But do we have time for that? Should we continue on or save that for another Monday night? Thoughts?
Maybe save it for another Monday night, and we'll you know, I think we've got something interesting going here for a while. I mean, I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm not going anywhere. So we loved having Amanda here. We're looking to switch out and have other folks in who have been you know, involved in this from like other websites, other areas of the world. So yeah, I think it might be fun just to kind of continue this conversation on another night. And I think some other themes will start to present themselves as we, rollick along with this.
So maybe we do like book signings or conventions at our next chat on what that might look like during this pandemic
For sure.
time, if that even is possible. And we do want to say we are not going to do this next. You lost me.
Nope, we got you, but we're
not going to do this next Monday.
Yeah, Lori's getting chopped up, but basically next Monday is Memorial Day weekend, and we're all taking a break next Monday, but we will be back, whether it's the Monday right after that or the Monday one after. Anyway, we'll be back on a Monday. That's what we're saying, but not next Monday.
Yes, because we'll all be going, well, those of you that are not locked down, we'll all be going to the beach on Monday.
Not me, but
okay.
So anyway, thanks folks for joining us. We really appreciate you coming. We're excited. You're excited. This has been fun. Thanks for, listening to us. There's like almost been 50 people here with us tonight listening, and we're having a good time. Hope you're having a good time. Tell a friend. And, maybe by the time this comes out, we'll be able to celebrate something in person, or who knows, we'll be in a big parking lot standing 6 feet apart and like cheering and shouting at each other. Who knows? We'll figure it out. So with that, I guess we're going to be signing off. So hey, till next time, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.